And the final series, The Wicked Powers, will be focused around a romantic relationship between the gay main character and one of the bisexual main characters from The Dark Artifices. And the final big series I want to talk about is the Percy Jackson universe by Rick Riordan. And this is a universe in which there are demigods who are the children of gods of lots of different mythologies. Obviously, it starts with Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This follows Percy Jackson, who is the son of a Greek god. The Kane Chronicles. This follows the descendants of magicians who worshipped Egyptian gods. The Heroes of Olympus, which follows the children of Greek and Roman gods. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, which follows the child of a Norse god. And The Trials of Apollo, which follows the god Apollo, who is stripped of his powers and banished to Earth by Zeus after the events of the Heroes of Olympus series, and has to prove himself worthy of becoming a god again. In terms of representation, Percy Jackson and the Olympians does have queer characters, but they are not revealed to be queer within this series. The Kane Chronicles arguably has a polyamorous relationship in it, but I'd have to reread it to say whether I could actually classify it as that. The Heroes of Olympus series starts to introduce queer characters towards the end of it, and there is a major gay side character who does become a main character in the last book, and a minor side character who is a queer boy whose sexuality I don't believe is ever addressed, and it also makes reference to a lot of queer mythological figures. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard is where it starts to pick up a little bit. So it has a pansexual protagonist, a gender fluid love interest, Loki, who is obviously also gender fluid, and it has a couple of male side characters who are like heavily implied to be in a relationship, but it's never explicitly stated, and I find that weird because it's Rick Riordan's book, and he has made a point of including queer characters since the Heroes of Olympus series, so I'm not entirely sure if you're actually supposed to read them as romantic, but most people do, so I don't know, read into it how you like, I suppose. And the Trials of Apollo series follows Apollo, who is bi or pansexual, and he is very explicitly bi/pan within the text. There are a lot of references to his past relationships with men and women. Other than him, there is also that gay side character from the Heroes of Olympus, who shows up again, as well as his boyfriend, whose sexuality is not addressed. There are some queer female side characters in the second book who are a major part of it. I don't think their specific identities are addressed, but it's kind of implied that they're gay. There's also some queer historical figures in this, and queer mythological figures other than Apollo. And in the fourth book, there is a lesbian side character who has a fairly major role, and she also has a girlfriend, but I don't think her girlfriend actually shows up on the pages, so I'm not sure I would count that. And now I'm gonna go through the very popular books and series that people already know about. I mean, the Percy Jackson universe and the Shadowhunter Chronicles also count under that, but they were deserving of special mentions, I think, because of how their attitudes towards queer representation changes. But in the case of the popular books, the first series I have is The Raven Cycle and the Dreamer Trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater. So, The Raven Cycle starts with the Raven Boys, and it is about a group of private school boys searching for the tomb of a dead Welsh king with the help of a girl who is the child of psychics called Blue, who has been told that if she kisses her true love, he will die. In terms of representation, these books have a gay main character and a bisexual male main character, and the Dreamer Trilogy follows on from the end of the Raven Cycle, and any synopsis I could give would be a spoiler, so I'm not going to, and I really do not recommend reading this before you've read The Raven Cycle. But this follows the gay main character from The Raven Cycle. He is the main protagonist in this. His boyfriend is actually a very minor role, but he is bisexual, and there are 2 bisexual female main characters as well. And I think there might be more? I can't quite remember. The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern is an adult portal fantasy about a guy named Zachary who finds a story from his own childhood in a mysterious book in his university library and decides to find out what it means. Zachary is gay and his love interest is a man, and there is a bisexual female side character. Then there's Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This first book doesn't have any explicitly queer main characters, but there is a bisexual male side character who becomes a main character in these last two books, and there is also another bisexual male character who is a main character as well. And also the author of the series has said that none of the main characters is fully straight, but that is not explicit within the text. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo is part of the Grishaverse, and while it's not necessary, I would recommend reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy first. This is about 6 criminals performing a heist on the world's most impenetrable fortress, and it is a YA high fantasy, and it has 2 queer male main characters whose specific identities are not addressed, but I think they're both bisexual, and there is a queer male side character whose identity is also not addressed, but he is attracted to men. There is also a bisexual female main character, but she is not revealed to be bisexual within this series, and I haven't actually read the book where she is supposedly revealed as bisexual, so I could be wrong about that. And then there's the Simon Snow series by Rainbow Rowell. I have very conflicting feelings about this, but anyway, this is about Simon Snow, who is the worst chosen one ever, who has to defeat the insidious Humdrum, which is a creature that sucks magic from the world. And he also has to solve the mystery of the ghost in his room with the help of his arch-nemesis and roommate Tyrannus Basildon Grimpitch, who may or may not be a vampire. I loved the first book, and I hated the second book. Like, hardcore hated. But this first book can be read as a standalone, and I loved it, and I recommend doing so. In terms of representation, Baz is gay, and Simon's sexuality is not really addressed. Well, it is, but he never comes to a conclusion about it, and it is handled in a bit of a problematic way, and it's sort of a gay for you trope, which isn't the best, but I do really love this book. And the second book also has some queer side characters, I think, but you know, I hate the second book, so who cares? It's got a beautiful cover though. Then there's History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This is a contemporary story about a boy whose ex-boyfriend dies in a drowning accident, and he was still in love with his ex-boyfriend, and the only one who can understand how he feels is his ex-boyfriend's last boyfriend before he died, who he hates, and they form a sort of uneasy friendship. So this is a Known Voices book, and the main character is gay, his ex-boyfriend is gay, his ex-boyfriend's last boyfriend Jackson is, I believe, also gay, and there is a bisexual side character. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I'm sure you know what this is about, but if you don't, it is about a closeted gay kid called Simon who gets blackmailed about his email relationship with another closeted gay kid. So yeah, Simon is gay, his love interest is gay, there is a bisexual male side character, and there are 2 bisexual female side characters, but they're not revealed to be bisexual within this book, and I have no intention of reading the sequel because I've heard bad things about it. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is about the Prince of Wales and the son of the President of the United States of America falling in love. The main character, Alex, is the US first son, and he is bi, and Henry, the prince, is gay, and there is, I believe, a bisexual female side character. There's also a gay side character as well. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Elias Sainz. This is a sort of slice of life contemporary, or, well, actually it's a historical because it's set in the 80s, but it feels like a contemporary story about a boy called Aristotle who has no friends and then befriends someone called Dante, and Ari also has a brother in prison that his parents never talk about, and they also never talk about the fact that his dad was in the Vietnam War. And that's basically all I can say about the plot. You could make the argument for Ari being bisexual, but I'm pretty sure he's gay. Dante is definitely gay. There is a queer male side character, but his specific identity is not addressed. and there is reference to some queer female side characters who don't actually appear in the book. And finally, I have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and this is a retelling of the Iliad told from the point of view of Patroclus, focusing on the romance between him and Achilles. And Patroclus is gay, and it's not exactly clear, but I think Achilles is also gay, but he could also be bi or pan, it's not really clear. Finally, I want to give a couple of honourable mentions to series that aren't queer in the first book, but I know get queer in later books, but because I haven't read the later books, I can't actually recommend them. So those are The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic and The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is a new adult crime story masquerading as a sports story, and it is about a boy called Neil Joston, who is the son of a mobster who is in hiding, who is recruited to play for a high-profile sports team of the fictional sport XE, and agrees because he loves the sport on the condition that he can leave before the actual tournaments start, and he will be able to be seen in the public eye on TV or whatever. So there is a gay side character in this, but I know that Neil is apparently demisexual and ends up with another guy, possibly in a poly relationship, I'm not entirely sure. But those were the vibes I got from the first book, but again, I haven't read the last two, so I can't be sure. And that's all the representation I can think of, but I think there might be also a queer female side character in this, but I'm not 100% sure. There might be, there might not, I can't say for certain. And this book is incredibly unrealistic, and also I would say pretty trashy, but it's really fun and enjoyable, and I just eat it up, so I really need to get around to reading the rest of these. And The Diviners is a YA historical fantasy set in Prohibition-era New York, and it is about a girl called Evie O'Neill, who is sent to stay with her uncle in New York after a scandal in her home state of Ohio. And in New York, a ghostly serial killer is just beginning his work, and Evie has a strange power which may be the key to stopping him. In this book, there is a gay male side character who becomes a protagonist in later books in the series, apparently, and he has a love interest-ish. And I've heard there is also a bisexual female main character later in the series, but I haven't actually encountered her yet. Or she might be asexual? I can't remember. And there are a lot of queer male side characters who are referred to as well. So yeah, those were all of my LGBT+ book recommendations. Be sure to check out that Google Doc for content warnings and other stuff. And it doesn't just cover these, it covers a whole bunch of other stuff, such as books with minor queer characters, which I wouldn't put on this recommendations list, because they're not queer books. If you have any queer recommendations, be sure to leave those in the comments, particularly any by black authors, because I really need to work on reading more diversely. And if you've read any of these books, be sure to tell me what you thought about them. I'd love to discuss them with you. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. You can follow me on Twitter or add me as a friend on Goodreads if you feel like it. Links to both of those in the description. And I will hopefully have another video up soon. But until then, thank you for watching. I have been Isaac, and this has been Books with Ike. Goodbye.